Hey guys, Sam Stein, managing editor of the Bulwark here, along with Lauren Egan, author of the Opposition newsletter. It's like easily one of the top 5 newsletters out there right now in the market. She's only done 2 editions.
Don't flatter me.
Okay, sorry. Top 10. Let's just leave it at that. We're gonna get into the topics that you're writing about, but before we do that, subscribe to the feed as usual. All right, so let's start with the polls. Basically, it's Sunday. A number of polls came out this morning. They were very bleak for Democrats. I'm going to get into 2 of them. So CNN survey says Democratic Party's favorability rating among all Americans is at just 29%. That is a record low since the network started polling in 1992. Wow. NBC News found that just 27% of registered voters have a positive view of the Democratic Party. That is also an all-time low since they started polling in 1990. Here's the catch. Both of those polls were done before the Senate Democratic leadership voted for the Republican-authored funding bill, which has enraged Democrats. So it's possible that this goes even lower. This is bad for Democrats. I have a theory about why, but I want your take first.
Yeah, I don't think it can get much worse for Democrats.
It could get worse. It can.
I mean, this is pretty low. I mean, this is a historic low in what, 30 years since they started polling these? Almost 30 years.
That's very good math.
Thank you. Thank you. You're right. You know, I wasn't that far off. This is why I write. This is why I write.
Yeah. So you think it can't get lower?
Well, obviously it can get lower, but this is bad.
What do you think are the factors here?
I think what Democratic voters want to see right now is, I think it was NBC had an interesting tidbit in their poll where they were like, the last time Trump was president, we saw voters at the beginning of the Trump administration wanted to see Democrats work with Trump to try and get some priorities passed. They now kind of are like, we know that's not realistic. We've done this before. We know that's not how it's actually going to pan out. So what they want is party leaders to fight against Trump, to push back against Trump. And there's just a sense among the party that there's no strong leaders in the Democratic Party. No one actually has kind of the guts, or sort of like the energy to really go after him in a meaningful and a persuasive way. And I think that's how I read this. And that's what we're seeing in the polls, I think, today that just came out.
It is interesting. It's sort of my read too. I think a lot of this is just, Democrats hating on Democrats right now, right? Like if the party's voters thought that the party had their shit together, these numbers would be better.
Yeah, like this is all driven by Democrats being pissed off.
Yeah, like Republicans are not going to approve the Democratic Party. And it's in these polls, it's like independents didn't have like a particularly positive view of Trump either. It's just they don't think the Democratic Party has much to offer them. And I do think a lot of it is just the sense that this party's kind of rudderless and that there's not really a leadership. There is a real leadership vacuum. Although I'm trying to remember, like in 2017, 2018, I guess Pelosi was there, but they were in the minority then too. Was there a similar gripes that the party just didn't have good leaders? I can't recall.
I don't remember that from 2017. And again, these polls, these are historic lows. So
right. So it would be different, yeah.
Obviously the same level of dissatisfaction wasn't there, but I think that's part of, the first time around, I think.
Yeah, maybe it's just like we experienced Trump before, and for Democrats are like, we know what he is, right?
Right.
Like,
I think the first time around, even if you wanted to see some more from leadership, even if you had some disagreements, everyone was trying to figure it out. We didn't know what kind of president Trump was going to be. There was a lot of wild cards, a lot of unknowns. We know a lot now. And so I think any sort of grace that some voters were willing to extend to the party the first time around, that's totally out the window this time.
And the first time around, there was all these popular movements, though, too, right? Like the Women's March right at that time really galvanized people and gave them sort of a way to, basically channel their anger and their fears and their sadness. And that is there's no outlet right now for that. There is, and I wonder if that would be, if the absence of that would, affect these poll numbers, right? If you had some sort of movement to latch on to, if you had some sort of cause that you could support, maybe you wouldn't care as much about what the Democratic Party isn't doing. But they don't have that.
Yeah. I just think that there's a sense that like that was all fine and good the first time around, but like the second time around, like that's just not enough.
But why
like the Women's March.
Isn't it there the second time around? I've kind of struggled with that question.
Yeah, I don't have a great answer to it. I think like part of it is there is a sense of like, okay, like, so what? So what? We all go march on the National Mall. Like, what is that going to do for us? We've done it before. He's still president. I think there's a bit of an exhaustion with some of it.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Exhaustion. I think there's got to be exhaustion. I mean, I get it.
I guess what I'm trying to get at is like, there's a sense of like, it's almost just like a little too cute to do that this time around in some ways. You know what I mean?
All right. Yeah. So you've been calling around all week about Schumer specifically because more than anyone else, he kind of finds himself at a crossroads. And he also, more than anyone else, is not personified as this older generation Dem who doesn't quite get it. What was your main takeaway from your reporting?
I was pretty surprised by how many people were just kind of like, he's in trouble.
Is he really though?
That's the thing. A lot of strategists were like, I'm surprised by how real this feels. At the same time, what's the solution? Right. I think a lot of people were kind of caught off guard by how sort of visceral a lot of the anger felt, and how immediate the backlash was. It was within seconds of him giving that speech that you saw activists and organizers kind of start to organize protests when he's on book tour next week and all that kind of stuff. Which again, I think the Democratic Party needs to have a meeting about how they maybe should cool it on the book tours.
What is their
not the
desire?
Best idea.
Yeah, what is their desire to write books right now? I don't get it. He's basically been doing the rounds though. Obviously, he feels like he needs to defend his position, but also I take that as him sort of recognizing that he's in some trouble. What has he been saying?
Yeah, I mean, he's kind of been digging in, and he did an interview with the New York Times that was supposed to be about his book, and obviously turned into be a bit about the vote that happened.
This is going to be like
an
all-time bad book tour. I feel like it's just not going to go well.
He's kind of pointed the fact that he's had a good track record of winning Senate seats, that he knows that it's not just up to any one leader. He likened himself to he's leading an orchestra and there's different roles for a lot of different people to play. But I mean, anyone who knows Schumer well says there's just like no chance he's going to just willingly go. No. And that he's going to dig in. We've talked about how this has some, eerily similar to Biden over the summer. Although I think Schumer has more staying power here.
Like Schumer, and also Schumer's not like ducking media, and he doesn't look. I mean, he's old, but he doesn't feel infirm the way Biden did, or have. And there's not questions about cognitive ability. It's really just vigor. It's like the ability. That's it, right? Yeah.
I think it's like, does he? What you hear from everyone is like, does he have what it takes to meet this moment?
But that's so ambiguous. What does it take to meet this moment?
Meet this moment has like been overused as a phrase in the past few days.
Even if it wasn't a cliche, but like, what does it mean? Does he have what it takes? Like, is he going to like set fire to, a building? Is that what it takes? I don't know what it takes. What does it take?
Yeah, I think like it was a sense of he didn't have what it takes to explain what it takes. That he doesn't have the ability to persuasively communicate and explain to the public his vote.
Yeah.
And get people on board, like either direction. Because I think what you hear from a lot of people is like, okay, this was not, Dems were in a bad position. It was bad option either direction, but we don't have a leader who can kind of bring the public on board with us, who can get the party all together and in line and explain to the voters, here's why we have to vote to keep the government open. And this is why this is the best option, or whatever direction you're going to go in, that no one can organize.
Yeah. That's it. It's like, that's the complaint I heard the most is like, it's one thing to do what you did and vote for this bill, but like, you should have at least had like a plan heading into it. And when the House Democrats all voted against it, and you were talking about, you yourself were saying, we're going to fight him, and then you just don't, like, it's not a plan, or it's not at least a plan that you executed on, let's hope. So that was, to them, like, they thought, well, if you're going to fold, you got to fold correctly. But he's not going anywhere. No one thinks he's going anywhere, and he's not up until 2028.
Yeah, and like unlike the Biden situation, it's not like there's an election tomorrow and we have to act fast. This is kind of a bit of a long runway, but I mean, he's got a really tough path ahead of him because he's for sure going to get protested a bunch next week when he's on book tour. LOL. And then
it's a legitimate. Let's just be clear. The book is very serious. It's about the rise of anti-Semitism in this country.
That
but
is
it's
fair.
Just opportunity. It's like the couldn't be worse timing. It's just he's going to get heckled nonstop.
And the reason I'm laughing about it is because Hakeem Jeffries also wrote a book.
Hakeem was
also just came back from book tour, and he got protested and interrupted at these book tours. And I think it just kind of, crystallizes, like, Dems want their leaders to be fighting, whatever that means to them.
Did you pick up any sense that they're going to fight the debt ceiling because of this, or do we not know yet?
I don't think we really know yet. I don't know. What's your sense on it?
Well, I don't know. I go back and forth. On the one hand, like, there's such a, appetite to, like, have some sort of showdown and get some sort of concessions from the administration. But on the other hand, it's like, if you thought the stakes were too high over government shutdown, then it's definitely higher for a debt ceiling default. So
right. So I mean, Dems are they're kind of in the same position. Like,
they will be in the same exact position.
Lose.
I just don't know. I mean, in theory, he could have some leverage there, but he literally just folded. So I think Trump will call his bluff, and that's part of the problem. All right. Final thoughts. So does it get better for the Democrats, or are they going to stick in the mid to high 20s?
That's such a tough question. It'll get better for them eventually. I don't know when that happens. I do think that there were some positive signs.
I have a different theory. I don't think any of this matters. I honestly don't.
What do you mean? Like, the polls or what?
These polls, I think, ultimately are going to be, we're going to forget that this even happened. I have a theory that, like, this is just Democratic dissatisfaction, and that as they get closer to an election, the numbers will shift. People are going to just be galvanized around Trump. He's the incumbent. He's the one in charge. And this is not going to be a referendum on the Democratic Party. It will matter potentially for primaries if we see some sort of Tea Party-like wave. But by 2026, it's not going to make it.
We have such a long time. I mean, I know the voters are clearly really upset, but it's also not a bad thing that they feel so strongly. There is energy on that side of the party, and there were signs in that poll that I think were positive, worrying for Trump and positive for Democrats if they're trying to organize around midterms. I think the NBC poll is something like just 18% of voters rated the economy as excellent or good, which is not great. I think for NBC that was the lowest that they had.
There's a lot of lows in these polls.
It was the lowest since like 2014. It was the lowest since 2014 for them, so not a historic low, but that's not good.
It's not good. No, 2014,
and that's. Does that surprise you?
Yeah, well, the economy really sucked in like 2008 and 2009, so I figured it would be that. But we'll see. All right, let's leave it there. Everyone should check out The Opposition. It's coming out tonight. Subscribe to the feed. Subscribe to the newsletter. Good luck to your Vanderbilt Commanders.
Thanks, Sam.
Is that
Appreciate
correct?
it.
Did I get the mascot correct? All right. My UConn Huskies will definitely be making the tourney.
You did.
Talk to y'all later. Goodbye.
Hey, YouTube fam, if you want to support the Bulwark, the best way to do it is by becoming a YouTube Bulwark Plus member. The Bulwark is truly independent. We have no corporate overlords. We're not settling any dumb lawsuits with Trump. By joining, you help support our work, and you can get a bunch of perks right here on this platform. Ad-free content, bonus videos, live streams, and some emojis of me, which I guess some people want. So come join, come hang out, become a Bulwark YouTube Plus member, and I'll be seeing you in the comments. So behave.